consumer decides wants to buy a property, contacts you, makes a decision right there, no issues whatsoever, fast escrow, no questions asked, which is wild, and it's a large transaction in the millions.
Yeah.
So that's happened to me one time.
Welcome back to your favorite podcast on the planet, in the universe, around the whole world. It is the Realty Talks podcast, episode number 10. We've got a ton of interest. There's a new face in the room. We've had many people asking us about who Agent F is. You don't know this.
I was going to say, I don't know if he actually knows that we have referred to him. We'll see if he's been listening to our podcast.
Okay, I'm guilty. I have not. So Agent F is an agent? That's secret?
We'll get there.
Okay. Don't you worry.
Let me do a couple of quick introductions. We have got the queen of the closing table, Suzanne Sini, our partner at Innovate Realty. I am your host, Paul Hansen, and I am excited to introduce Agent F. So I'm going to start there, and then I'm going to explain a few other pieces to it. But a few episodes ago, we asked Steve, who's normally on our podcast. He's out today working on some other stuff, but we asked him what his most exciting real estate experience was personally, and it was when he bought his current house. And the episode before that, we had talked about how we joined forces, and the common theme was Agent F. We hadn't talked to you yet, so we didn't want to say your name on putting it out there in the world. We didn't want to blast
you into.
You guys didn't want to plug me in?
Yeah,
no,
we wanted you to.
We're plugging you in right now.
Okay.
But what we wanted to do was explain how those were all connected. So you and I went to the Chargers game.
Correct.
We meet up at Steve's house, and we get out in front. I think you got there a little bit before me.
I got there before you, yeah.
And you called me, and you're like, wait a second. I know this house. I think I'm having deja vu. I've been to this house. And then you looked it up, and you had sold it.
Correct.
To Steve.
Steve, yeah. Correct. That was fun. That was an interesting experience. Yeah, I actually looked it up when you sent me the address. It rung a bell, but I didn't bother searching it on the internet.
Yeah.
So I kind of knew where I was going, but I wasn't sure until I actually drove up to the property.
Yeah.
Like, this looks familiar.
It was a little while ago, yeah.
So those of you who haven't listened, Agent F is Franco Shamoo, and we have done business together now for 4 years?
Close to 4 years, yeah.
Yeah, and I know you guys have done business together for a lot longer than that. But I always introduce people with nicknames. So we're gonna change your nickname formally on the Realty Talk podcast from Agent F.
Drum roll.
You get to choose.
I like Agent F.
We did a poll.
I don't know. I'm thinking about getting hats that say Agent F on it.
That's a good branding move. Yeah. We did a poll around the office, and I had a few nicknames that came to the top. Okay. We've heard Frankelstein.
I'm gonna pass on that one. Let's go to the next one. What's the next one?
We've heard the Francolini.
No.
Okay. All right.
Because you can spin that
That
differently.
one's warmer.
I'm not sure.
That's warmer.
We have the Shamoo.
Okay.
One of the guys in the office, every time you call,
The Shamoo.
as it's ringing, it says, "Ooh, it's the Shamoo."
Okay.
Or we can just stay with Agent F.
I think we'll stick with Agent F. I think
all
I like
right.
that one. Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds official too.
All right.
I just like that there are multiple nicknames for you around the
Right?
office
Yeah,
that
and I had
you didn't even know about.
And I had no idea.
Yeah.
Well, let's dive in. So today we have a few questions that we would love to ask you. I think our intended outcome, of this episode is just to get to know you a little better.
Okay.
I think also, just to formally highlight how well you do. My experience with Franco is that he's extremely humble. Outside of his physical physique. As a businessman, has always done very, very well, and doesn't have an ego around all the business you do. But you've been very successful. You've also helped Buy House, our organization, in the early stages, sell a lot of properties. I don't know how many we've sold together, but it's been a lot.
It's been a few, yeah.
Yeah, and so. I think our intended outcome is just to, let the world know, you're one of the top, 1% of the 1% of the 1%, here in the California market. And we want to understand a few of your secrets. We want to understand just a little bit more about,
I'm not going to give up my secrets.
Yeah, it's the beard.
Yeah, no, this is
Well,
good.
I would say that's
Okay.
exactly opposite from what I know from
No, I know.
from Agent
I sh-
F. I think that's one of your best attributes that we
Yeah.
talk about all the time is that you are always willing to give up your secrets. It's not a secret. It's about helping others. I see you do that quite a bit. So
Correct.
it's great to give you the platform. I know we've got some questions for you and we'll dive
Yeah.
in and peek behind the curtain a bit.
Yeah, so I think that I think a good start here is maybe kind of start like where I started from, right? We can
Yeah.
kind of talk about that.
Yeah, how did you get into real estate?
Yeah, so I originally was in the mortgage industry. So I started somewhere, I think in my memory, if it serves me right, I think around 2002, somewhere in that range. So I ran a mortgage office, a branch office, and eventually we ended up running our own company. We started our own company. And then it was an office of about maybe 10 to 15 loan officers. We were nationwide. And the market was pretty good, at that time.
Early 2000s.
And when the financial crisis happened in 2007, 2008, a lot of the loan officers, were scrambling. They didn't know what to do. Some decided to take the route of going, maybe possibly getting FHA certified and kind of take that direction. That didn't seem like it made a lot of sense for me personally and my partners. And then some of the loan officers decided to go the direction of doing loan modifications. So, and I looked at that briefly, and I didn't find that was the solution. I just didn't see that would be the ultimate solution. So I accidentally fell into short sales. So, and I'm going to kind of lead this to where how this all connected. Yeah. So I started a company or service company called Help You Short Sale. And how I caught on to this is that contacting mortgage lenders and so on, finding out how to save property and what have you. I had a client that needed their property saved, but the one thing that they did not want to do is have a deficiency. So that was a little complex, right? So anyway, because most homeowners will stop making payments, what have you.
Yeah.
Credit's affected, then they won't be able to re-enter the market until maybe,
Right.
I think at that time it was like 4 years or something like that.
Can I ask you a question about that? So, how does a short sale typically work? I mean, you're throwing stuff out that
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
some of us understand, but I know there's a lot of listeners that
Sure.
probably don't even know what a short sale is or what that means.
So you, the audience, you have a property that you owe, let's say maybe $500,000 on, and the property's only worth $450,000. You need to sell that property, and the only way to do that, either you come up with the difference of that amount to cover it, or you negotiate with the bank to make that adjustment, which is called a short pay or a short sell. And they'll agree to do that, hopefully, under certain circumstances, and then you're able to put the house on the market and sell it.
So well, I guess I don't want to get too far into the
Yeah.
weeds, but how does somebody
There's
get
more
into that
details on that.
position? Like, is it a market correction? Is
Yeah.
it a bad appraisal that put the lender into that position? Is it, people are just way behind on their mortgage? Like, what is it that inspires somebody or creates that opportunity?
Sure. So back then in 2008 and what have you, 2009, that was a market correction, right? The
Got it.
market took a major correction, I think nationally like 33% or something like that.
Yep.
And especially, in addition to the type of loans that there were that they issued back then too. So a lot of people were securing 100% financing or negative amortization loans over 100%. So they were overextended.
Right.
Right. So the only way to get out of that is to renegotiate that loan. Right.
Right.
So today we're not seeing that though. Like I keep an eye on equities, equity in properties across the board within California, Orange County, LA, and so on. And I think the last report that I saw, I think there's an average of like 22 or 28%, somewhere between 22 and 28%. Equity in properties.
Well, I think we can speak to, and I think one of our next guests is going to be on the lending side, the responsible lending that's being done now to make. The banks are so much more strict than they were back then. So.
Yeah, you just don't have those loans anymore,
Right.
right? I mean, you just don't have that opportunity, and hopefully we won't see those anytime soon.
Yeah.
So.
Lesson learned.
Yeah.
An
Yeah,
interesting
let's
data point too, and I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but I think in 2007, so pre-crisis, and some people saw this coming, but the NPL status on existing, mortgage-backed securities in the United States was at like 8 or 9%, if I remember correctly. Don't quote me on the number. I know it was sub 10%, which means that 8 or 9% of the mortgages out in existence were in a non-performing loan status, meaning they were 90 days or more behind on their mortgage.
Correct.
Okay. Which generally, for our market, as we know in 2008, 2009, the whole financial system collapsed because, the banks that issued those mortgages went under. The banks that were underwriting those, started to fracture.
Correct.
And so then the Fed stepped in and injected, billions of dollars into the banking system to basically correct, that gap. And then we are where we are today, right? I think the only bank in the U.S. that didn't need funds at the time was J.P. Morgan Chase, and Jamie Dimon, the CEO at the time, actually took funds because if he didn't, the bill wasn't going to go through, and who knows where we would be today. I think today where we sit, the country of Italy is sitting at like 18% of their mortgages in circulation in an NPL status. Yeah. And instead of 90 days to get that NPL status, I believe it's like 180, like 6 months. So 20% of the houses are, 6 months behind on their mortgage. Correct. And somehow their world is, or economy is still
different economy, different market, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting.
That's why they're paying people to buy houses there.
They are, yeah. Should we do the same here? No, we should not. No, we should not, yeah. So anyway, from that service and so on, I ran that for about, at this point, my wife, my partner, she was selling property and what have you, and I focused on building Help You Short Sale. And what I ended up doing really is in addition to handling our own transactions, I ended up networking with top realtors in the area that had a lot of transactions. I won't name any right now. And one of those top agents actually was the introduction to Steve. And that's how I met Steve, yeah. So, and he was the buyer on the property. Right. So we had the listing from the homeowner, but my communication was interesting because it was a short sale. So I handled that transaction, and my entire communication was directly with Steve, back and forth with him of what we can negotiate on the transaction. And in a short sale, I should probably say this, in a short pay, back then, I don't know about now, it takes months.
Right.
You're talking about one transaction could take anywhere between 3 months, sometimes to a year.
Yeah.
It could be a lot of time of negotiating and so on.
He told us the story.
It's long, It takes.
We got the whole rundown.
I think it took a year plus.
It takes a lot, It's a lot of work, a lot of paperwork, a lot of going back and forth, and I gained a lot of experience doing this.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably, with a 4 to 5 year period in my career, that's probably the most amount of knowledge I've ever gained, and I still carry that with me to today.
Right.
I think that's where a lot of the confidence comes in. That's where where I go in, and when I communicate with clients and so on, I bring in a lot of information to them because I understand the banking world, I understand the finance world very, very well. I believe I do. Yeah. Between a servicing company, a bank, and what have you, right? Yeah. So anyway, but that's how that developed, and then from once the market rebounded. Yeah. Right? I think, I don't know, what, 2013, maybe 14, I can't remember. That was it. My wife and I talked, and I had to hit the pavement.
Yeah.
So that was it. So then I started selling real estate. So and we just we teamed up, and I think my wife was at Coldwell Banker at the time. We ended up going to Keller Williams. I can't remember, but we ended up selling real estate, and we started building our team from there. Yeah. And then eventually we met Suzanne. We met Suzanne, and then through Suzanne I met you. Yeah. Right. Yep. Okay. So so we met Suzanne, and we were working for Suzanne at the time. And
well, what's funny about that is because then through you, I met Paul. So
correct. And I'm going to leave this connection.
Yeah.
So met you, and part of the reason why we went to Suzanne is because they were one of the brokerages that actually had a strong relationship with Zillow, and at that time Zillow was buying property, right? Yeah. So they had an opportunity to provide leads and to resell some of the properties, what have you. So we thought it made sense, right? Yeah. A little smaller boutique shop and so on, a little bit more intimate. Our team kind of felt like that made more sense for us. So we ended up doing that, and then one of the leads was you. A fake lead, by the way. So Mr. Paul Hansen, inquiring about a property, right? Yeah. About selling your property, I think. And that lead came to me, right? And so, and it took a while, I think. Yeah. I think we went back and forth, right? Yeah. But being persistent. Yeah. right?
That's what
you
you
have,
do.
You have to be
Yeah.
in this business, right? You can't give up, right? Calling you, texting you, communicating with you. Finally, I think I got you on the phone. I can't remember. I may have gotten you on the phone.
I don't remember if it was a phone call or if you just were next to my bed one morning when I woke up.
Listen, I'm here right now.
Yeah. It was one of the two, yeah.
But we connected somehow, right? I
Yeah.
don't know if it was through text.
It was a
call.
call. Yeah.
Was it a call? Okay. And that call went well, I think.
Yeah.
I think that we spoke and so on, and I said let's have coffee and or lunch, whatever. And I think we met.
Yeah.
And in this business, it's interesting. It's you meet people sometimes, right? And there's no connection, right? There's often times where I meet someone, I'll go in and I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to gain this deal and what have you. I'm going to be able to win this person over, and I don't feel good while I'm there. I'm like, there's just nothing there.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't feel a connection here. I want to do the business, but this isn't work. So a lot of times I might pass them on. I hate saying this, but I might pass them on to somebody on our team, someone else, because I just don't feel like I'm a good fit, right? But you and I felt that there was a connection there was a fit there.
Yeah.
We had a common interest. And then, we kind of just, I started bringing you deals, right?
Yep.
You bought them, right?
Yeah.
We flipped them, and relationship kind of started from there.
Yeah.
And then, and then there was a time there. I think Suzanne. I can share the story. Yes.
I think that is a whole nother
No subject. Okay, we'll leave that one. Okay.
Because I want to keep the focus on your success.
Okay.
But what I will say is, what I think is really funny, and when you listen to our other episodes, you will hear this, because I said something very similar about Paul. When I met him as well, where it's like it's you, I guess, the glue here. But yeah, it's like when you meet someone that is really like-minded, and I think just to bring it all full circle, all of us sitting here right now, it's people with the same goals. And really, striving for the same things in general in life, and also providing to others, which I think we all have that same quality as well. So I know you have some questions. For Agent F here.
Okay, ask some questions.
Well, I think the first question that we ask guests are, what is your most exciting personal real estate story or experience or.
Okay.
Separate from like representing or buying, or a buyer or a seller or just you individually.
First of all, they're all exciting.
Yeah.
Don't they all bring
all
something?
All my clients out there.
Yes.
Hopefully you're all listening. Yeah, we will be listening. No, I'll tell you. There's one that stands out to me, and it was I think maybe, I don't know if a lot of agents will probably say this or not, but where a consumer decides wants to buy a property, contacts you, makes a decision right there, no issues whatsoever, fast escrow, no questions asked, which is wild, and it's a large transaction in the millions.
Yeah.
So that's happened to me one time.
Yeah.
One time. So I want to say if it's exciting, I guess maybe I get excited about that,
Was
right?
that a lead? That was a lead?
That was actually a lead.
Oh, wow.
That was a lead that came through, but just, again, picked up the phone. And so my wife.
Buyer or seller?
Was a buyer. My wife and I are in town. We see that you have a listing. We want to take a look at your listing. I showed him our listing. Didn't like our listing. And usually what I end up doing when I'm showing a property, I'll have a list of other properties just in case, right?
Yeah.
So the same exact day, I took them to a couple other properties, walked them into one property, loved it absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I come and put an offer. It's going to be cash. My dad's going to wire the money to in escrow. Well, can we close escrow in 10 days?
Sure.
And then you automatically you think, okay,
You're like, yeah, right.
BS, right? Yeah, this is not going to happen.
Well,
right?
that's
This doesn't happen in this industry, right?
No, real quick,
It
I just
happened.
wanted to add that as you told that story, I have that same exact story, except they didn't end up closing.
Well, so I have a lot of stories like that don't happen anymore.
Yeah.
But this one did happen, and it was a large transaction. Yeah. Now, sure enough, I'll tell you, I've sold this person other properties since then. We built a relationship. We become friends.
Yeah.
So over time, so that's what's nice about it. Yeah.
Can you share the range of that transaction? Like what was it?
That was in the $4 million range.
Oh wow. Yeah.
That's amazing.
How long ago?
What are we, 2024? 10 years ago, probably?
Wow.
10 years.
That's
So $4 million back
huge,
then
10 years ago,
in Southern California.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably a $7 or $8 million house now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Maybe more.
Yeah.
Maybe more, yeah.
So what is, do you have a personal experience that's not related to a client? A personal, like an exciting personal real estate story?
That's not related
that you purchased, that you or your family purchased or sold or.
Well, okay, so in my career, I've purchased property where I flip property.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done that. And let me see the most exciting one. So there's this one, I think, I want to say maybe about 3 years ago, 4 years ago, we picked up a property. It was a small little condo, and we remodeled it, ready to flip it. And it was a grandmother that was an agent, needed a property for her niece. And her niece, was it her niece? Oh, I'm sorry, her granddaughter, my apologies. Her granddaughter, needed a property for her granddaughter. And she tried and tried to find her property. At the time, the market's pretty strong, and she just couldn't do it, what have you. So she reached out to us and wanted to put an offer and made an offer on the property. And this is the exciting part. We actually took less money what we could possibly sell the property for.
Yeah.
Only because of the story, and I don't want to share the story right now, but the story that she gave us.
Yeah.
We felt really good about it. So that was probably, I know that's transaction related, I get it, but that's probably one thing that really stands out in my mind.
Yeah. I mean, it says a lot about you, because your most exciting personal experience is basically giving back to somebody and putting them into a house that you could have sold for a lot more to somebody else. But a lot of compassion.
Yeah. Well, honestly, I'll tell you, Paul, you're kind of like that. In a sense, you are. I mean, there's times that you and I have gone through transactions, and then we have a story on the person.
Yeah.
And you'll make a decision. I think possibly based on that. I mean, obviously, numbers are important, right? But you'll make a decision based on that too as well. So I see that, and I think that's where I appreciate the partnership too as well. Yeah. Because look, this is what I really believe. I think that you should give back. I'm 100% believer in this. And if it means in knowledge or training, there's young agents that are up and coming that are confused, they're lost. They just don't know, right? Especially now, today.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll talk about that briefly, but it's important that they have somebody that they can go to, they can feel comfortable with, and just be completely transparent with. Most agents don't have that, I believe.
Yeah. Well, I think in most industries there's bottom performers, there's average performers, and then there's a trusted advisor.
Sure.
Right. So you would consider a top producer really somebody that the general population or the buyers trust or sellers trust. And trusted advisors tend to get repeat business, and it just kind of becomes easy, right?
Correct, yeah.
But that word, or that phrase, trusted advisor, is really complicated. I mean, we're all really smart people, right? Like, not everybody in the world, but most people, most humans, right, have the ability to sense what other people are feeling or thinking to a certain degree. You kind of know, as you mentioned, if somebody's a good person or a bad person.
Correct.
And you're drawn to people. And so I think that's probably a huge definition of your success. I mean, you've become a trusted advisor for a lot of people. I mean, that most exciting experience you had outside of selling the condo was a seamless transaction with a big number, but that person has bought a lot more, real estate with you. So it's not just that one.
Yeah, and that's the part of real estate, right? Building relationships.
Yeah.
Right, and continuing them. So that's absolutely important. Yeah. Now I'll tell you, I've never had a bad experience.
I was just going to ask you, what's your worst?
Were you really?
Yeah, I was going to say, what's your worst personal or business real estate transaction? I can think of one that we just closed.
No, see, I don't look at them. I hear you. I can name several that you might think, but no, those are experiences. And so for me, look, this is the honest truth. If you would have asked this question maybe 10 years ago, I'd probably give you a list of stuff. I'm in a different place today. So I don't see things that way anymore. They're all experience. I learned from those experiences. Nothing's perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, the things are going to go odd, sideways, whatever. That always happens. You got to be able to maneuver and pivot, right?
Yeah.
It's like being in the middle of the road, cars are coming at you, and you got to be able to dodge them a little bit, right? So it's we kind of I've learned that over time. My biggest thing is just staying patient.
Right.
Right. So I can't tell you that I really I would never change anything that's happened. Every experience I've learned from and I've grown from.
Yeah.
It's taught me something. I've always grabbed something from it, right? So, and I use that somewhere down the line. I either use it myself or I'll offer it to someone else. in a conversation and so on. So,
yeah, you know so much more now about like city permits and you know. So,
toilets and
exactly.
leaks.
Unclogging drains.
Unclogging drains,
you
like
know?
little small stuff.
That one's a deep cut. I specifically know the transaction you're talking about.
No, it's okay. It's good though.
Yeah.
But it's a good thing. And then also personalities. So this is something that we don't like often think about, the people that we're dealing with,
Right.
their lives and what they're going through. You know, a lot of times, you know, salespeople, agents, you're absentee, right? You disengage because you don't have to be. You don't need to know what the other person, the other side agent is going through, or their client is going through.
Yeah.
I honestly make it a vested interest. I get involved. I ask, like and not that I offer them advice or what have you, but psychology is very important to me.
Yeah.
In a transaction. So I try to understand the psyche and everyone that's involved.
Right.
Yeah.
So I can make the best
then
informed
you know
decision
how
for
to
my
manage
client.
that.
Yeah, to help my client. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did we ever tell you about? I think it was maybe our third or fourth transaction together. I'm sure you've heard about it, but we're not going to talk about the agent's name, and I won't give the house number, but Asbury in Anaheim.
I don't know if I ever heard the story.
So, I mean, this one's a super interesting one. Franco brought the lead to me, said, hey, this is a really cool property. He doesn't remember because he does so many deals. I remember vividly. He says, hey, this is we're just getting to know each other. Hey, come walk it with me. It's off market. It's this old guy. He was in the movie industry. And he said, the house is really unique. And to me, unique means like, oh, it's going to be banged up, like something's wrong with it, which is good, you know, for us. But anyways, moral of the story, we buy it. You know, we go through the renovation. Renovation was pretty seamless, actually.
That was nice, actually.
Yeah, it was pretty decent. Perfect timing. And the reason I share this story is it resonates with what you just said. We come to market. Actually, this home was on, it was either Flip or Flop, or it was one of the national HGTV shows. They reached out to us and said, hey, we have all these people we want to show on the TV thing.
Yeah.
At the time, we're early in our business cycle. We're like, oh, we're going on HGTV.
Yeah.
This is great. I don't think we ever got anything out of it, but maybe $500 or something. But anyways, moral of the story is we get a ton of offers.
Yeah.
And we end up selling to a young professional with kids.
That's right.
And we're in escrow, and we're getting down to the closing wire, and I'm annoying. I'm calling Franco like, hey, what's going on? What's the update? What's happening? And he's like, the other agent's not communicating.
Oh, no.
I mean, like, fell off the face of the universe.
Oh, no.
And you injected yourself and started, working together to like unravel the pieces. I don't know the story, but I think the agent got in a car accident or claimed they got in a car accident. I mean, frankly, he did the whole thing.
Pretty much,
You ended up bringing the deal
he disappeared.
together.
We ended up putting the deal together with the broker.
Yeah.
But that's happened more than once though.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's with you, but that happens. I don't know if it happens often.
Yeah.
But with my experience, that's probably happened, I'd say, a dozen times.
Well, I remember
That's not
vividly
that's
because
kind of a normal thing.
Yeah.
you called me and you're like, hey, this is a really gray area. Like, I really can't talk to these people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, there's all these rules. And I'm like, well,
Correct.
how do we get the deal closed?
Yeah.
Correct.
I mean, you went out of your way. You met with the broker. You talked to
Yeah.
I mean, you went above and beyond. And client's happy and living in a great house. And
No, they were ecstatic, and so we got a great review from it too.
yeah, we did.
Love
On top of
that.
that, which is good, right?
Yeah.
No, but again, those are experiences, right?
Yeah.
And you have to, at the end of the day, you're representing a client, and you got to get it past the finish line.
Yeah.
Right? You and I always say that, right?
Yeah.
What do we need to do to get it past the finish line?
Right.
For a couple reasons. Number one, Franco has a shoe addiction. I'm going to put it out there. He's wearing a great pair of shoes now. The only time that Franco's ever really offended me in my life, I wasn't actually offended, but
True.
But I asked for some advice. I'm like, hey, look, I've been told by sources that my style is not very, it's not very forward.
true.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, you got to start wearing better shoes.
He's like, step one.
Let's start there first.
Step one.
Yeah. So I think
you go.
most of the time you're excited to get through a transaction because we have a deal that when we close transactions, we go buy a new pair of shoes together.
There you go.
So the only nice pair
when we make money on the deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Let's be clear on that.
Yeah. So we have to go buy some shoes. So.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. I'm ready.
I'm nervous. I'm nervous because the shoes he looks at are like.
You know what's funny about it? Like, so when I go out to look at shoes now, I think about him.
That's
so
funny.
weird. It's weird. I do. This would look good on Paul. And I think about taking a picture, and I'm like, no, that's a little too weird.
Franco,
I can't do that.
Franco picked these shoes.
There you go. So on that note.
Yes, I think we're coming close to time. So, but I think there's a lot more to unravel here, and I'd love to dig in a bit deeper if you can come back and spend some more time with us. So we'll do a part 2 of Agent F. We're going to stick with Agent F.
We will. I like that. Agent F.
We're going to build, some hats, get some hats, some shirts,
some swag.
Yeah, we thought we maybe think about renaming the brand.
Okay. All right.
Agent F. But yeah, join us back next week for part 2 of Agent F.